So let's look at what's happening in the schools. There are information was found to show that now we have 78 countries all over the world which is still authorizing punishment by teachers. In some of these countries, 97% the children experience corporal punishment. Sexual harassment is also happening in schools. Rape of students were observed, and the sex for grades, sex in exchange for grades, being practiced in some schools. Apart from that, bullying is very common, which is in the form of physical and psychological and cyberbullying. To some extent, bullying have already resulted to suicide among students. So these are just what are found in terms of whether countries are doing anything in relation to violence against children in schools. So progress, as I said earlier, there are 78 states who are giving permission for teachers to use corporal punishment. Now we also have 107 countries now which is prohibiting the use of corporal punishment in schools. The policies in schools have changed between 2008 and 2010, and more than 390 million children have been protected by these policies worldwide. Okay, so moving on, in relation to work or initiatives in school, this is being done presently in the region. We have an increasing implementation of programs in positive disciplining and anti-bullying in schools. We have now seen an integration of the prevention of violence against children in peer education. So among you, this one is in many countries in the ASEAN region. There is a test, now they're trying this. Among you, you're now integrating the use of prevention of violence. Another is capacity building of peer educators. Another is the inclusion of violence against children in the social networking agenda of young people. Many young people now have Facebooks, right? Who has Facebooks? Yeah. So now in many countries, you can now begin to exchange a campaign or education against violence on children through using this networking. So it's going on in the region as well as all over the world. Another example of what's being done presently is that child protection policy guidelines in schools are now being drafted and finalized. In the Philippines, this is already almost done. So our Ministry of Education has mandated that the policy be soon implemented all over the country. So efforts are being done, are being rushed so that next school year, the policy would now be in effect. Okay, so let's look at what's happening in another setting. Violence in care and justice institutions. See, in places where you should be safe, there is such a thing as violence happening. And there was some findings about this lately. One, it's still going on. Children in institutions are at risk, has been found to be at risk of a lot of verbal, physical, and sexual violence. Other institutions also do this. They do electroshock treatment. They deprive their wards of the children under their care of food. And sometimes they put them to sleep. They forcefully put them to sleep so that they will behave. And this was really something very, very appalling. Children in institutions now are the children we also need to reach out to. Another finding was there are still countries who are practicing violent sentencing. This is the justice institutions. So far, there are 40 all over the world. And juvenile justice executions are also still happening in 2 countries of late. So is Cambodia one of these? Do you still execute children because of the crime? They offended the law. Is it happening in Thailand? Are you here? Is it happening in Laos, in Burma? You better check. We need really to monitor this one. You better check. Okay. So let's move on to progress. So there are movements towards putting children in homes, in communities, instead of putting them in institutions now. And there are many countries in the region are really trying their best not to put abandoned children in institutions. So we're very careful about this. However, there are also countries still in our region with so many institutions, and they would rather that they would have children put in these places. Okay, so another progress is that some countries have raised the criminal age of responsibility, but not yet in ASEAN. I would give, this is embarrassing, but in the Philippines, we are now debating, our legislators are debating whether to put down, increase the age of criminal liability. It's very, very sad. I hope our legislators will change their mind, and we are working towards not making them change the law. So, these are the situations. And fewer countries now are executing child offenders, as I said earlier. Now let's look at violence in the workplace. We found out still that there are 150 million children still engaged in hazardous work. It has not yet stopped. Also, there are 22,000 children who have been killed at work every day. Or every year, sorry, every year. That's so bad. Yes. And millions of children are being trafficked. So it's still going on. The trafficking is part of the follow-up of the violence against children work. So you see, we need to change the findings, and I hope it will not be the same. And life will be better for children who are at work. So what is the progress so far? Hazardous child labor dropped 10% since 2004. And the commitments of countries have been strengthened. And it was done during the Sexual Exploitation Conference in Brazil and the Child Labor Conference in the Netherlands 2 years ago. So the countries where maybe you and our countries were represented said they would do better and improve the situation of children who are working. And the Domestic Workers Convention has been adopted in 2011. So some things are changing. However, the challenge there is, have we ratified the Convention of the